Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I'm delighted to be joined by Lawrence Conley, Ian Conroy, and Liam Carrigan, where we'll be talking about the big one. It's upon us. Lawrence, how are you feeling about the big Glasgow derby?
It should be relatively routine for us, mate. I know we had a bit of a blip on Brendan's record last game, but I think, one game a week will suit us. They're playing in the kind of Europeans' bottom competition. They'll maybe be a wee bit tireder than us. I think Brendan's got the team motoring. I'm expecting 3 or 4, mate, in the first half.
In the first half, he says, Ian, this man has the confidence. There is a bouncing of momentum about Celtic right now, though, and rightly so, Ian, because obviously, what I've heard over the weekend and since is that you're a checkbook club, you've got all the money, you should be winning, etc., etc. But, at the end of the day, that money was earned. We weren't given a cheat code. We set our foundations many, many years ago, and this is the legacy of 3 decades proper financial management. So I enjoy every moment. I'm not going to let anybody take away the enjoyment from these times. There's nothing wrong with going into a Glasgow derby feeling as confident as Lawrence is there?
There's not, and I think we've got a good right to be confident, but we don't want to be overconfident, of course. The pessimist in the team here probably, but I mean, they trounced us 3-0 in the last game, and as Brendan says, they kind of stole our game. It was these things happen. It's kind of when you're not at it, and the other team, plays to their absolute maximum, raises the game and has a game plan. These things can happen. So I'm expecting that Brendan's going to have a bit of variance in our play. Because I imagine Rangers are going to sort of set the stall out and play in a similar fashion. They had a good result against Fenerbahce, hitting them on the counter. So as long as we're alive to that and our players are switched on, I've seen the Hibs. Well, I just saw the highlights of the Hibs game actually, and it was 2-0, but we should have had a fair few more goals. So hopefully our players have got their shooting boots on, and we do knock in a few goals early doors. It's kind of mad, really, when you think about the dominance we had in Brendan's first tenure, and it was only 5 was the highest sort of amount of goals we took off them. We should have taken 10 in some of these games, and that's not being sort of underplaying it. We were that dominant, but we never sort of took that many goals. So a win. I want to get these 3 wins. Is it 3 wins? Whatever, how many wins it is to win the title. I want to just get that over the line. If it's a dirty 1-0, I don't really give a monkey's really, as long as we get it done. But a few goals would be quite nice, Lawrence.
A dirty 1-0 or an abundance of goals. Either way, we win the game. You're absolutely right. And Liam has been talking about how many games we need to win before we wrap up a potential treble, never mind the league. I think it's an interesting point that Ian makes, though, Liam. When we go back to the game at Ibrox where they beat us 3-0, all this chat about, you guys just need to turn up, you're the richest, you can buy all these players, etc., etc. It doesn't work like that. Football does not work that way. And that game is a classic example of it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, more recently, if you want to apply that logic, Bayern Munich should have taken 10 off of us, and they didn't. Mm-hmm. If it's purely about money, they're on a completely different stratosphere to us.
Yeah.
But no, I think I'm leaning more towards what Lawrence is saying on this. I think I see plenty of tears coming out of Ibrox on Sunday night. I think we are going to well and truly put them in their place, because, for want of a better phrase, I think at New Year they poked the bear. I think they got a wee bit too confident about a one-off result, and then they duly shot themselves in the foot over the next 2 games. And we've just been quietly going about our business, and as usual, we will do our talking on the park. I actually just finished about 20 minutes ago writing a blog about this. We're going to get an absolute barrage of nonsense in the media this week to try and convince us that wasn't a one-off.
Yep.
That it's going to, that there is actually a resurgence over there, and there isn't. There isn't. We turn up, we take at least 5 off them. That's the reality of it. If we play the way we should, they should not get near us. I don't think we will ever play that badly again, and I don't think they will play as well as they did again. So I don't see anything other than a comfortable win for Celtic.
The other result we could have used as an example, of course, would have been when Queen's Park went to Ibrox and won that game, if you're talking about financial disparities. But that particular game, I remember afterwards, there was a particular interview, I think it was with Raskan, who overnight became the greatest midfield player in European football. And it was just the arrogance of him talking about Callum McGregor. I don't know if you remember it. There was a wee coming together between the two players. And it was like the arrogance was oozing out of him. And I like that because I just think he's a 1-0. So you can think, as arrogantly as you like. We'll come back from this. We'll learn from it. We'll be galvanised. And by the way, Ian, I don't think you're pessimistic. I just think you're a realist. You don't get carried away. There's nothing wrong with that. Being balanced. Absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. And we'll be talking a wee bit more about that game, every single position on the park and how it's going to be filled. The Scottish Cup semi-final, of course, there's news this morning launched that St Johnstone have changed their minds about allocations, and they are going to give Celtic 3 stands in a game in which Celtic may well lift it or secure the league title. They won't lift it till the last game of the season, of course. And I looked at that, and I looked at the statement as well, and some of the responses by St Johnstone fans calling their club a disgrace for giving Celtic too many tickets, saying that you should remove the St Johnstone crest and put a Celtic one on there, and we'll call it Celtic Park version 2. For me, that, in a nutshell, is the attitude that holds Scottish football back, Lawrence. I mean, Scottish football, for all intents and purposes, punches way above its weight because of 2 entities. Let's be honest, it's 2 entities, because when it comes to broadcasting and sponsorship, etc., they're looking at a package. Scottish football have got 2 massive football. Sorry?
I think you mean 3 entities. I know one's deceased now, but
yeah, but the deceased one is never involved in the discussions about broadcasting, etc. Even though they were discussing the reintroduction of the new entity into the Scottish League back in the day, Lawrence. You remember there was 2 votes, bizarrely. And the issue that I've got is the way that is kind of framed by fans of other clubs. And St Johnstone, the reaction they've had to the fact that they're willing to make money from a football game. What's the alternative? Go back to what we've had this season where there's loads of empty seats at McDiarmid Park. I find it bizarre. And it's a go-to response by fans of other clubs to say that, why bow down to this club? To make money for your business. You need money to survive as a football club and to progress as a football club. I find it really strange, Lawrence, that other clubs have basically lost money to spite Celtic this season.
Listen, I think, first of all, it's brilliant news for Celtic fans. Let's be honest. We've got to be happy. There's more tickets out there. How other clubs run their business, I suppose, it's up to them. Motherwell have justified it by saying, it gets us most people at other games. It comes down to money. I don't know how many more people you need to get compared to a full stadium. What St Johnstone's average crowd is. You don't know if these guys on social media even go to the games, let's be honest. They might just be having a pop. Something to criticise. I think games are better with full stadiums. St Johnstone can't fill theirs. Why let it go empty?
Exactly.
It's a St Johnstone a decision for the St Johnstone board, but from Celtic fans' point of view, it's brilliant news. Absolutely brilliant news. If some St Johnstone fans are unhappy, I don't really care. Stick a Celtic crest in your stadium if you want. I'm sure Peter will charge you appropriate for using that. But yeah, it's great, mate. Might not be the game we win it. I think the Rangers have lost 3 at home on the trot. They'll be worried about another league game at Ibrox. So they're probably quite glad to be coming to Celtic Park. But yeah, it's brilliant news, mate. But I don't get fans, how angry are you? Are you not going to renew your season, but next season because of one game where you could make loads of money for your club? The board done that. Listen, that could be a new player to them.
Absolutely. And it's about income streams in any business, Lawrence. And for me, Ian, when I look at that, and obviously there's Livingston for an example. I switched the game on just to see obviously who was going to be in the hat, and we'll be talking about the draw for the Scottish Cup semi-final. And all I could see was empty seats. That's all I could see. And Livingston were one of those clubs when they were in the top division where they were quite happy to give Celtic 3 stands, to the point that when Joe Hart left the football club and he did like a Q&A, you'll remember, near the end of the season, he did a big Q&A session, an audience with, and they were talking about his memories. And he was talking, Joe Hart, who's been to 2 World Cup finals, 2 European Championship finals, he's won the lot for Manchester City down there, domestically. And they asked him what his memories of Celtic are going to be, and he said Livingston away, because the stadium was absolutely rammed. You remember that, Lawrence? That was his answer. Yeah. The stadium was rammed. There was 3 stands full of Celtic fans, and we created an unbelievable spectacle that you take the fans out there, and just to go back to what Johnstone said, it just becomes an ordinary game of football. And there's that aspect of it, but there's also the financial aspect of, I keep going on about teams who are continually underperforming. And the top 6 for Scottish football should always be Celtic, not in this order necessarily, but in size of team support, the previous successes.
I like the way you're starting, though. I'd say that should be the order. I like the way you're starting.
Well, we know Celtic are going to be number 1, but I'm almost doing it in city order. So Celtic and Rangers, Hearts and Hibs, then the new firm, as they were once described, Aberdeen and Dundee United. But all those other teams should do better. And then you've got a clutch of teams that are all kind of chasing the same ball. And I think that when they run well and they recruit well and they've got the right management team, they do particularly well. So you see seasons when Motherwell do very, very well. St Mirren, and in the past, of course, St Johnstone. These teams will do particularly well. But they're underperforming, really, if you think about it, in terms of building their fan base, building their season ticket sales up on a season-to-season basis. It's the same in the Championship. We've got clubs in there who should be doing so much better. Falkirk, Partick Thistle, Morton, probably Dunfermline, Raith Rovers. So it's an issue with Scottish football. Yet when they're given the opportunity of creating an income stream, Ian, they've been knocking it back all season. Only now, and by the way that they released the statement was interesting, because they focused on safety issues to begin with. And they put a lot of onus on, you know what, this is going to potentially be a title party. Therefore, Celtic fans will take tickets in the St Johnstone end. And to alleviate that issue, we'll just give them 3 stands. And then they went on to the financial implications. So it's a very backwards mentality. I think that's where I'm coming from with this one, Ian. And it's just like, if you've got 2 massive hitters in the game, embrace it. Make as much money as you can from every fixture. Surely that's the best business decision.
I think, it absolutely is the best business decision. But I mean, I can see it from the point of view of some St Johnstone fans. Like, hypothetically, and I know it's not ever going to happen likely, but imagine if St Johnstone were in the title race and we're going there, and it's we're challenging. Would it be people be happy then? If it was if we got the same kind of allocation, I don't think they would. But that's not generally going to happen. So they should really maximise, from a business point of view, maximising that yield when they can, when Celtic and Rangers come to town, Plus the fact that it looks great on television. It looks terrible when you've got these empty stadiums and
it does.
Smatterings of it. Just looks amateur, doesn't it? And so they should also as well be giving the tickets away to sort of schools and things like that. If they're not filling their stadiums every week, future proofing for generations to come. Getting kids in the door and getting fans for the future. But I don't know if teams do that, but they used to do that back in England when I was sort of growing up. So yeah, look, I say I can understand certain views of St Johnstone fans, but it's just the way it is. Celtic are a juggernaut, a behemoth, as are Rangers compared to St Johnstone and the rest, really. So you may as well make hay when that particular sun is shining.
I absolutely agree with that, and it's no disrespect to the teams, Ian. It's all about the clubs growing and financially getting stronger, so that then they can recruit better. They can get a better standard of player. I don't understand it, but it's where we've been all season. It's been a particularly difficult season for away Celtic fans, and we do have quite a few of them in the Acsom group, and we've got a few who are probably getting to that age where they're not able to do the away days as often as they would like. The Celtic Daz amongst us guys. It catches up with you eventually. Quite a few people disagreeing with the confidence of some of our contributors today, so we're going to be bringing them up. But before we do that, there's a couple of wee discussions going on here. Let's have a look. Right, let me see if I can find it in relation to the get-up that has been sported recently by Brendan Rodgers. We spoke about it yesterday, so let's have a wee look at this. Mark Anthony Smith, as part of that discussion, he's talking to Dylan on the chat. It's actually a CP company jumper, even more expensive. You are, of course, talking about Brendan Rodgers' change in style this season, and I've had to have a look at this, gents. Right, so there you go. And I'm going to ask you the question: who wears it better? Is it Big Ange with his Celtic jersey, or is it Brendan with his apparent CP company jersey? I'm going to ask you first, Ian. Sorry?
I didn't say anything.
I heard an echo there, sorry. Yes, I'm going to ask you first, Ian. I know that you're a bit of a fashion aficionado. Who wears it best, Ange or Brendan?
Well, it's obviously Brendan for me. You know, he lived in the northwest as well, northwest of England, and Pep Guardiola's been rocking a bit of Stone Island and a bit of CP company.
Yeah,
I think also as well, I've got to give this. There was a joke that Bobby Bluewell put on Twitter years ago, and it made me laugh. It still makes me laugh to this day. When Guardiola was wearing that kind of knitted thing with a hood.
Yes,
I don't know if you remember, a couple of seasons ago.
I remember it.
And Bobby's joke was there's obviously a TK Maxx locally. Those kind of monstrosities that people get that, it's like every designer, but it just doesn't look very good. But Stone Island, I mean, I've back in the day, I've had several different pieces. I've still got some Stone Island stuff and some CP company stuff. The great late Massimo Osti was a designer, and it obviously became synonymous with football sort of terrace culture as well. So I kind of shied away from wearing them. I've got a few sort of sweatshirts and things that I think I've worn on here a couple of times as well. Just basic stuff. But you can't go wrong with a bit of Italian luxury brand. So sorry, Ange.
I know.
It's the company.
I think that the thing that holds Ange back here is the shirt under the jersey, guys. It makes him look like, Dress Dundee or a school teacher, geography teacher style. And he told the story, didn't he, about the fact that his wife was away back, I think, to Australia for the week, and he ended up wearing this jumper. And I think the sales went through the roof at that time because Ange was at the peak of his powers at Celtic, and all the Celtic dads and granddads were buying a sweater. I remember Stone Island probably in the 90s. We are in Edinburgh. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. This is all I'm just rapping through memory here. In Edinburgh, you could go up to Cruise and George Street and buy Stone Island, but all the badges were removed from the garments because they kept getting nicked off the hangers. And then once you bought it, you would get it from behind the counter. They went into this wee box and gave you the badge. Oh my God, thinking back to those days. Yes, you're right. It's become obviously a go-to for the terrace culture, and people can also wear the trousers with a badge. Get the badge in, guys. Who do you think wore it best, Lawrence? The bold Ange or our Brendan? Brendan looks class in that sweater.
There was another club that's deceased and a new club that are obsessed with how managers dress, and I just can't believe you're going there. But
we're not talking brown brogues. We're not talking brown brogues here. Come on.
Wait, if you're telling me one of them is a Celtic jersey and one of them's not, I'm going to go with a Celtic jersey. Right?
Of course,
It's not a hard decision, mate.
Of course, yeah. They're not loud enough for you, Liam. There's not enough colour in there for you, is there?
No, I was just going to say I'll recuse myself from this discussion because sitting here in my Philippines goalkeeper shirt, I'm probably not in a position to critique anybody's choice of fashion.
No, he has changed, and Kevin Graham had a theory on why he's changed it. But listen, he can wear whatever he wants. I'm pretty sure he'll don the suit come cup final day if we get there. Talking of which, the draw has been made. We've been talking about St Johnstone and the ticket allocation, Lawrence. The draw was made last night. Aberdeen and Hearts will face each other in the semi. The Scottish and Celtic have St Johnstone. Massive draw for St Johnstone. Celtic, it's one of the ones where you've just got to get the job done, don't you? I mean, they've not done that well this season. They may well get relegated, but you've just got to be ultra professional. We all know the cliches about it being a one-off, a cup game and all that. But I always look at Brendan Rodgers' record, not only in his competition, but at Hampden. His record is impeccable. And I think that momentum is massive, regardless of who you're playing.
Well, Brendan's record in cups in Scotland was it's only interrupted by a dubious VAR decision or non-decision at Rugby Park.
Who was on VAR that day?
Was it Alan Muir?
I think it was. Haksabanovic you're talking about.
Yes, clear trip in the box, last minute, or 2 minutes to go there.
How's Haksabanovic doing? Anybody?
Mate, he's left Celtic, who knows? It's, but look, it's the draw you'd have wanted, isn't it? Take St Johnstone and semi, you get, I think out the teams left, they're the weakest. I know they're probably the second most successful team in terms of cups in Scotland this century, but it's a draw we would have wanted, mate. And it should result in more tickets for Celtic fans as well. Surely St Johnstone aren't going to demand half the stadium at Hampden.
Well, even if they were to do that, there would be a moment during the ticket sales where it becomes evident they're not going to sell them. And then obviously they're offered to Celtic at some point. But no, you're absolutely right. And I think when I was looking at it last night, I was thinking, who would I want? I wouldn't have minded Aberdeen, I wouldn't have minded Aberdeen. I think we do have that upper hand on them. The semi-final followed up by the 5-1, Liam. I wouldn't have minded that. The fact that Hearts are in a bit of a resurgence, that might have been a tricky one for us. Might end up playing in the final if we get there, obviously. What do you make of the draw, Liam Carrigan?
I was going to say, actually, that I wanted Aberdeen as well, because I think that we just seem to kind of hit form when we play them. Because I think that League Cup semi pretty much derailed their entire season, didn't it? I mean, they were going really well in the league until that game, when it clearly knocked the stuffing out them, and they've not really recovered from that. But I mean, if we obviously, thanks to Queen's Park, it's not going to be Rangers in the final. So if we can't play them, then Hearts would be a close second, I think, for most of us, wouldn't they?
Can never play Rangers.
Yes, you're right. And we did speak about that on the blog just recently, just to give that another plug, Liam. There was a really interesting article that was pulled together by young James Mackenzie in relation to the goalies that have revitalised their career by coming to Celtic Park. One of them that was mentioned, of course, was Craig Gordon. And it was only when I was reading through that it kind of dawned on me that famous image of him dropping to his knees, when we've won the invincible treble after that incredible Tom Rogic moment. And you look up at the Celtic fans in the stand, and it's bedlam, isn't it? It's absolute bedlam. And there's Craig Gordon just dropped in, a player whose career was done when we signed him under Ronnie Deila. He'd played one game of professional football in 3 years, and here he was becoming an invincible. And by the time we win the quadruple treble, we beat Hearts, and he's the Hearts goalie. And and you're just thinking that's nuts, because that season, because it obviously filtered into the following season due to the COVID breakdown and all this kind of stuff. We played that game, and it's still classed. Correct me if I'm wrong here. It's the 2020 Scottish Cup final, isn't it?
Aye.
It's the 2020, but it was played in the following season, and you had guys like Shane Duffy and all that. What a bizarre game when you think back to it, right? But Craig Gordon was also in goals. Then, I wouldn't mind Hearts in the final. Absolutely not. Let us know in the comment section what you think of the draw, what you think of the ticket allocation, and what do you think of the confidence shown by Lawrence and Liam so far on the show. Ian is hedging his bets a wee bit more. Ridiculizer, I'm going to bring you in first. You're on the YouTube. What's that in your avatar? Is that a sheep? Anyway, heard the arrogance of ours before the last game, our fans that will be, and we drew the cup final game, winning with a lottery of penalties. Anything can happen in these games. I always have that feeling. I do. I'm kind of veering on the Ian Conroy kind of way of approach. I would love us to put them to the sword. Of course I would. I look at the record going into this game, take away the European game, and they're on a poor run, right? So Queen's Park beat them at Ibrox. They go to Tynecastle, and although they win 3-1, they're very, very lucky in respect to getting a breakaway after Hearts should get a penalty, guys, if you remember that. Then they follow that up with another defeat at Ibrox 2-0. Then they come back for 2-0 down with a Barry bounce, and they win 4-2 at Rugby Park. And then, of course, Motherwell go to Ibrox and beat them 2-1. So the Fenerbahce result for me is almost like an outlier in a very poor run of form. So going into that game, even with that, and with Celtic playing so well, I'm never confident going in thinking it's going to be 4 or 5-0. I don't know what that is. Is that kind of post-traumatic stress disorder from years gone by? I'm not sure. Probably during Brendan's first tenure, there was more confidence going in, and we were winning and winning it well.
The effect of Scottish media, mate. because they try and say the two teams are the same quality. So that's that kind of effect that you've been brought up with. These two teams are the same. What's Brendan's record against them? Absolutely.
Are you suggesting that I am influenced by the Scottish mainstream media?
We're all influenced at some point. There's no point in media advertising. You know. So there's a subconscious influence there that should be saying
by Keith Jackson.
Brendan absolutely annihilates them. I think he lives for it, mate.
But he didn't.
I think that's why he was so angry.
He didn't at Ibrox this season, mate. He didn't annihilate them.
I think he was so angry there. So it's like we've talked about. Rangers will win one title in 10 if they're lucky, and I think that kind of goes for games against us as well.
Can I just say, even if you're right, I am not accepting the fact that the Scottish mainstream media skews my narrative when it comes to Celtic. I'm sorry, I'm not having that. Absolutely not. Anything they write, if you think I'm going to believe it, and that indoctrinates me into a almost submission when it comes to a Glasgow derby, no chance. No, I'm just of the view of what Ian said and what Ridiculizer said. You go into these games and they can take you by surprise. They really can. So I would never think, we're going to win 4 or 5. I'll tell you what, I'll love it if we do. I will celebrate like there's no tomorrow if we do that. But it's not happened for a while. Let's think about it, guys. When's the last time we gave them a tanking? Like score-wise, it's been 2-1, it's been 1-0. We don't tend to annihilate them these days, and we haven't for a while, even when I don't think we've played a particularly good Rangers team.
Well, this is why Souness sort of came out and said that there was virtually no gap, because he was taking it on one-off games, because we weren't taking 4 or 5 off them.
Yeah.
But I think it was in TalkSport, Martin O'Neill rightly said, that. But again, a one-off game's a one-off game. It's over a season.
But Souness is virtually no gap. He also said we'd take 50 million to close. I don't know if you can take that guy seriously. I think O'Neill destroyed him on it, didn't he?
O'Neill's pretty good at that, to be fair. Lawrence, he's pretty sharp. On which note, perfect segue, 11 tickets left to see Martin O'Neill with a Celtic State of Mind in a couple of weeks. Ticket link underneath the video. No, I don't know. I just don't think in the last couple of seasons that the results will suggest that there's going to be a 4 or a 5. Listen, I would happily put my hands up and say I was wrong. Haxer who, says Kaiser? I think he went to Stoke City. And I think he's still there. I've not checked for a wee while. I do check up on ex-Celtic players, unlike Lawrence, who doesn't care. Once you're out, shut the door on your way out, is Lawrence's motto.
Unless they're coming back, like Jota and Kieran.
All is forgiven.
That's it.
Jota, Kieran and Brendan.
Did Haxon go to Copenhagen or somewhere after Stoke?
Oh, has he left? Has he left Stoke?
I thought he went. I thought he'd gone. Maybe that's a false memory.
Let's have a look. Right. Okay. He is at. He's not at Stoke. He was at Stoke on loan. He's away to Malmo. He's away to Malmo. You're right. Yeah. It wasn't a false memory. So he's now at Malmo. Probably warming their bench as well. A guy of plenty of talent as well, which is unfortunate. Ian Roy. I like Liam's confidence, but it's never that easy. Cherny and Dessers are a threat. There is also, of course, the fact that they're playing on Thursday night, even though Lawrence is saying it's the second-tier tournament. They are playing on Thursday night.
It's the second-tier tournament, mate.
It's still a tough game. It's still a tough game. He's up against your say.
I think all their games at Ibrox have been hard lately. You've had Motherwell.
All the big names. All the big names, yes.
Yeah.
But that could go to 120 minutes. This was a point that was made yesterday. People think this is done and dusted. It's not. That could go to 120 minutes. Then they face us on the Sunday. I'm really looking forward to it. For anyone who is thinking about going to watch that game, you don't have a ticket and you want to come and watch it, you can do that at Barra's App Design. We've got a fan zone down there. The doors open. I was going to say gates open. The doors open at 11 o'clock. We've got live music from David McKendrick, the Acsom. Troops will be there, and the game is on the big screen. It's a good way to watch it. You get free pies as well. The underwater cabbage salesman. St Johnstone fans don't turn up. I'm sure the 3 people that need the relocating will get over it. And Johnny Ryan also says the usual 2 stands were empty at Livingston last night. I did notice that. It was a horrible look as well. The other strange one was Martindale was getting interviewed the other week, and it was almost as if he was saying something along the lines that he prefers to be in a championship because at least you can win a few games. I found that bizarre that was his outlook. He was going, rather than being up in the Premiership and getting beat every other week. You know, at least we're winning games, don't you? And I just found the whole outlook absolutely bizarre. Danny Boy agrees with the panel. He thinks it's going to be a cakewalk. Now, there has been some unsettling tactics already, Liam Carrigan. You know how the Scottish press works as well as anyone. And the latest one I was reading is Nicholas Kuhn to Newcastle. All right, it must be the week of the Glasgow derby. I think we're all, unlike what Lawrence just said about me, he thinks I'm just fickle to all these stories. I think we're all long enough in the tooth to see these far enough and know what the motivation is for that type of tale in the week of Glasgow derby.
What the issue is, though, which and I'm going to use a quotation here, right? Which I think was wrongly attributed to Joseph Goebbels, but I don't think it was him that said it. I think it was actually somebody else. Repeat a lie often enough, and it becomes the truth, right? And basically, that's what happens with the media in Scotland. Is they invent a story and they repeat it and they repeat it. And although you and I know it's nonsense, the problem is that there are a lot of people out there, and it's no their fault, right? But there's a lot of people out there who are like, okay, it was in the paper, it must be true.
Yeah.
And those people are getting fewer and fewer by the day. But I still have it. Like, sometimes I have it with my dad. You know, he'll say like, "Oh, I read this or that," and I'm like, "No, look, it's nonsense." You know, I tell him exactly why the story is nonsense. But it's like that's the kind of thing that happens, and especially, you know, this goes beyond just football. We see it in politics. We see it worldwide. That people can just invent their own story, and there's enough sycophants that will run it for them that eventually it shifts the whole debate to closer to their position.
Yeah.
And this is the thing with the idea of, you know, you said yourself that you've got this uneasy feeling because it's a derby, right? I'll probably have a bit of that on Sunday when the game comes around, because I usually get nervous before the game. I don't get nervous leading up to it. I'm usually confident. But the thing is, it's like there is no actual logical reason why you should feel that way.
No.
Based on the stats, based on the results, based on the finances, based on every single measurable metric, we should go out and absolutely scud them on Sunday. But we might not. We might not. Because that's football. Football has always got that random element to it. And that's where that unease comes from. But my point is that the media deliberately exaggerate that random element and try and play it as an equal standing. And it isn't. It's not an equal standing. They might beat us. They might. I mean, it might happen. But 9 times out of 10, we win that game. Because we have the superior team. We have the superior resources. We have the superior manager. That is the reality of it. And that's the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future until they get a massive reality check about how to run a football club, which they won't, because their own arrogance won't allow them to.
No, they've been blinded. And is it the same people, you know, the ones that still actually buy newspapers, Liam? And I don't blame them, because they were brought up in a completely different era. And there's a different culture to that whole thing. But often I'll get told from one of my parents about something, and it's delivered as fact. And I'm like, where did you see that? Where did you read this? Facebook. Yeah. I read it on Facebook, and I'm thinking, dearie me, you've not checked the source, have you? And it's probably the same kind of era. A person who believed what they watched on that wee box in the corner of their living room, they believed everything that came out of that, and they believed the newspapers. And I think that the advent of open source media, open source material, it's got its faults, but it also allows people to dig out the truth and eke out the truth. It's all about sources, really, isn't it? Celtic will win 3-0, says Martin Davey on Sunday. I like your confidence. Jota loves these games, and it would be brilliant, Bob, to see him thrive this weekend as well. Big Red comes in. I'm going to let you explain this one, Lawrence Conley. Big Red says the Skylark was rocking at the weekend. There's going to be more live music unless you get a ticket for the game. What's going on? And why weren't we invited? Why weren't we invited?
So Paddy Campbell that started Irog, you know that Irog from the Gorbals, named after the old Gaelic football team for the Gorbals. Mm-hmm. So Paddy was down and brought his guitar. So there was free pies here. There was music before and after the game. I think we finished about midnight. I think. I'm not sure. Couple of balls.
Ian, did you get an invite to this, mate?
I didn't know.
Nah, never
It
either.
was an open door.
I didn't even get a dial-in invite, nothing.
Hey, last time you were meant to turn up, you forgot.
When was that?
I had to bring the jersey down to you. Down at
Actually,
yeah, that's true. That happened.
Actually, no, I'm wrong there. No, Lawrence put a shout on the group chat.
No, the other group chat. Sorry.
Oh, the other one that I'm not in. Oh, cheers, lads.
Right.
It's all right. You know, live. I'm being dismantled live by the subgroup chat that's been set up without my knowledge. Cheers, lads. Pete, Rangers hammered us last time and should have won at Hampden. Not sure about that. But CCV stopped them 4-1. A draw is always fine when we are points ahead of them. Yeah, it's not a disaster to get a draw, Pete. I would agree with that. Stop this, says Daniel. Good to hear from you, Daniel. It's embarrassing how cocky and arrogant some of the panel are. We got played off the park at Mordor or Ibrox or Castle Grayskull. No, Snake Mountain. No, we did. We absolutely did. And it was the low point. It was up there, in fact, even maybe as bad as the Borussia Dortmund in terms of low points of the season, Daniel. And it's been spoken about by Brendan Rodgers, but he does have such a focus. And I agree with Liam. If you were to look at our manager and their coaching ability against our opposition, then it's night and day. It absolutely is. We're going to have a wee chat about the team then and the team that's going to be setting up. But before we do that, the Glasgow Derby officials have been announced. I'm going to read them out here. Stephen McLean is the ref. John Beaton, I'm not making this up, is on the VAR. Graham Stewart and Dougie Potter are the assistant referees. And the outlier is Sean Carr on the assistant VAR. I think his name's actually Sean O'Carroll, but he's changed it just to be a bit a spy in the camp. A spy in the camp. I keep saying this, Liam, is there anywhere else in world football where the announcement of the official gets so much discussion? I went through Celtic News Now this morning, the great Celtic News aggregator. There's no point in anyone setting up a Celtic News aggregator in the future because they've nailed it and they're the best. And I'm looking through all the stories and the amount of people that have written a story about officials announced, officials. Is there any other country in the world where this is a thing, Liam? I think it speaks volumes.
Hang on a minute. I'm just going to put a line through that schedule from my next blog. I won't bother with that one.
There's already 25 of them out there, mate. No, but we're pretty unique in Scottish football that this is a big talking point ahead of just about every game, isn't it?
Aye, it's silly, but at the end of the day, it is part of this. You know, I don't want to because I've heard this language used before, and you know, when people said Neil Lennon brought it on himself, that was totally out of order, right? But to a certain extent, the refereeing group do bring it on themselves with a sense of the complete lack of transparency and the complete lack of openness. I mean, I know it's no for everybody, right? I watched a right good game of rugby at the weekend. Scotland and Wales. And there was a couple of decisions that were questionable. But you know what? The referee got on the mic and he explained it very clearly. He spoke to the players in a polite but direct and firm tone. And the players were like, fair enough. Maybe I don't agree with it, but I understand it. Same in the stadium. Now, why can't we have that? Why can we not have... And do you know why we can't? Because referees in rugby have to go through such a vigorous training regimen to get to that level.
Yeah.
Whereas in Scotland, it's more about, what's your lodge number, mate? Okay, in you go. You know.
But I do think there's a simple way to deal with this. I mean, if we go back to the football clubs who refuse to allow fans into their stadium, right? And we do live events. I've been banging on about the Martin O'Neill one today, right? 11 tickets left. They will sell out. The link is underneath the video. But imagine, right? I've got a venue there. There's 350 seats in that venue. Lawrence, you've enjoyed many a gig at Barra's Art and Design. And imagine I had sold 50 tickets and somebody came up to me and said, we can fill this out. 300 tickets tomorrow. I would be insane to say no. I would be absolutely bonkers to say no. And bearing in mind, Lawrence, we're talking about they're there to see something on the stage that they support. It would be bonkers. It makes no sense whatsoever to me. And it's easily resolved by the football clubs behaving like proper businesses and taking the income stream when it's available. And when I look at the officiating in Scottish football, I also think it's very, very simple to resolve. And people keep going on about the financial aspect of it, Liam. Surely we can just prioritise the finances to make sure that the officiating in this country is not tin pot. Let's make sure of that before we make sure in most other things where there's potential black holes where cash is lost in Scottish football. So let's make sure that the refereeing and the VAR is absolutely spot on. The referees are professional because this is a professional league that we're playing in. Make sure they're professional for the Premiership games and the cup competitions. I mean, what is the difference in terms of the finance? It can't be. We're not talking millions here, are we? To make that happen.
It certainly shouldn't be. But no doubt they'll find some way to tell you that it is that much and it's too expensive.
Well, Willie Collum was going on about it, wasn't he, when he came out and spoke about the Alistair Johnstone assist at Easter Road, and he was talking about the spider cam and the fact that we don't have that, and it was all financial. I think to say, why don't we have it?
No, but that's just a distraction for Willie. Oh, with the spider cam, they got it right. No, you have the equipment you've got. The VAR official is trained to use it. Now, everybody knows that you can't use that angle after. Every referee knows you can't use that angle to prove it's conclusively out, but he's still
I get that.
He's the assistant VAR official in. So
he's guessed.
Either cam or not, this wasn't a fault with the equipment. This was a fault with the individual making a factual decision. They didn't have evidence to back up.
Right, I get your point, right, but it was a bit of both. Because he should not have overridden the decision on the field because he couldn't offer conclusive evidence that it was out. So 100% agree with that part. But why couldn't he prove that it was out? Because we don't have the equipment. So it goes both ways. We should have the equipment so that he can say, actually, it's a millimetre over the line, therefore it's out.
I think Willie's distraction going, oh, the equipment got it right. No, actually, why did your guy make a decision against Celtic that he's not entitled to make? You need to explain that a wee bit more depth here, Willie. What was his thought process here? You've trained him. He knows he can't use that image. So what
do you think his thought process was?
Was it bias? I think there was at least unconscious bias going in there, and he was going, I will find a way,
Anyway.
To call this out. Yeah.
Yeah.
The assistant VAR was like, it's inconclusive, we can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was this angle, then this angle.
And it was the manner
he found. He was saying
he was leading him. He was leading the assistant, wasn't he? I mean, by the way, it was damning to listen to the audio. It was absolutely damning, and it really is. It's embarrassing that we can't provide a shot that actually proves either way. And I think that was the biggest argument. So
I've got a way they could do it. Get a guy up in a stand with an iPhone.
That was the best shot I've seen. Lawrence, from a vlogger on TikTok, it was the best shot that I've seen, which is, again, it's just adding to the embarrassment. So there we go. We know who the officials are going to be. Let's talk about the Celtic team then. And, going in through the defence, this is a bit of a cliche these days, but I honestly don't think, barring injury, it can be anything other than the following. And I want you to agree, disagree, and we'll have a chat about it. Casimir Schmeichel is in goals. He's been a revelation since he came in. Alistair Johnstone at right back. The guy's attitude's unbelievable. He seems like the nicest guy off the pitch and a warrior on it. A bit like Davy Hay in that respect, who liked to play right back as well. In fact, he started the 1970 European Cup final at right back. Davy Hay was known as the quiet assassin, a gentleman off the park and an absolute monster on it. Left back is Schlupp. Please argue the toss. Carter Vickers and Trusty in the centre of defence. Ian, that's my take on it. Do you agree or disagree? What's your thoughts on the selection of the defence?
I agree. Yeah, that's my strongest lineup as well.
I was saying yesterday that Greg Taylor has started every game against Rangers under Brendan Rodgers' second time round. It makes no difference though. I mean, he was one of the worst performers at Ibrox.
We get targeted over the top and into that left-hand side, and everyone's doing it. Whether it's playing on Taylor's mind, and it's there's a bit of insecurity that's crept in, but I think Schlupp is far more solid, and we're not as easily sort of manipulated with those cross balls over the top. So I like Red Taylor, I love him, but all good things must come to an end. I think naturally there's this. Obviously Brendan was staunch in his defensive. Sorry to use that word, but yeah, robust in his defence.
Devout. He was devout.
Devout, yes, he was devout in his defence of Greg Taylor. You know, when the Green Brigade were shouting for Kieran Tierney, you know, whether that was part coded message, it was up for debate. But you know, so it's you know, he's well regarded by Brendan Rodgers. But I just think that with Schlupp coming in, his power, his pace, and what he adds going forward as well, you know, I think it's he's got to be a shoo-in for that game.
Yeah, Schlupp's been sensational, if you ask me, Liam. I know when we signed him, there were people raising their eyebrows. They're thinking, wow, this is why you're away down to London to sign this guy, 32-year-old on loan. But he's come in and he's shown everybody why he's played 300 games in the Premiership, and he's a Premiership winner down in England. There's a standard, there's a level. There's so many players like that, Liam, down south, who are really playing at such a high level week in, week out, that they could more or less come into Scottish football and fulfil many roles within the Celtic team and do so confidently. I've been hugely impressed with Jeffrey Schlupp.
I've done a full 180, in my opinion, with Schlupp. I was disappointed at the signing initially, but I realise in reflection that most of that was just, I was angry it wasn't Kieran Tierney, right? But then the more he plays, the more I like what he does. And I really, now I'm like, Celtic, get him tied on a longer deal. He is the perfect backup for Tierney next season. Because we know Tierney is not going to play every game, right? We know that. And Schlupp is exactly what we need. And he can be deployed elsewhere as well. He's got that versatility too. So I think he'd be a great addition to the squad, and I totally agree with him being the starting left back at the weekend. I think he will, particularly if he's gonna be the one that's tasked with keeping Tierney quiet. I think that's going to be a good duel to watch, because you know, Greg Taylor, great servant to Celtic. Wish him all the best wherever he goes next. But New Year game and the cup final, he was caught out badly when they scored, and that's a fact. You know, watch that back, and I don't think that happens if Schlupp's in that position.
No, you know, these are the things that, as you say, they're not just opinions; they are observations based on what actually happened to them. So it's not a pile-on. And I know that Lawrence, you've been a massive supporter of Greg Taylor since he came to the football club, or started playing regularly anyway. It's been a strange old season for left backs at Celtic, hasn't it? I mean, we brought in young Alex Bailly, and his stay at Celtic was pretty fleeting, and he went away back out on loan. Taylor, I'm not going to call him a contract rebel, but he's not signed a new contract. And then we brought in a third left back in Jeffrey Schlupp, who's become the first choice. It really does look at this. I know that football can throw an unexpected twist into the equation, but at this moment in time, it looks as though Greg Taylor's career's over at Celtic, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, listen, Brendan spoke about the squad needing to add physicality and pace. You know, Schlupp's definitely got both of those. You know, he's an improvement. And Greg's been a brilliant servant for us. I don't know what they signed for, $1.5 million for Kilmarnock or something.
2.5.
2.5. He'll leave with loads of medals, everyone's best wishes. You know, if we can get a deal done for Schlupp, it'd be brilliant, but you're starting him at the weekend. He's got that pace, he's got that power, he's quicker on the turn. You know, he seems to get back quicker during the games. Mm-hmm. I think he's more of a threat. Does he play the inverted as well? Maybe not, but I think we've got enough in midfield without needing to drop a fullback in there to cause us a wee bit of issue at the back, because it is where we get targeted. Greg's not at all. It's never going to change. They're going to drop balls over him. He's not the quickest in the turn. It's an easy one for him, you know, for teams to play against us. So yeah, you've got to start slipping it back. You know, and I think we made a playing inside and Jota in front of him as well. Jota's maybe not going to give you as much defensively as Maida would. So I think Schlupp's a good balance for that. He gives you a lot more defensively than Greg does.
Mm-hmm. And he likes attacking. I mean, he had another good strike at goal at the weekend. He obviously set up Yang for his goal against St Mirren with the overlap. I know that Greg Taylor's got a lot of assists to his name at Celtic as well. But yeah, I do feel at the moment that he's given us something. And there is the physical aspect. But, you know, he's just, for me, he's more of an attacking player. And what I mean by that is Greg Taylor passes the ball back a hell of a lot, whereas Schlupp is always looking for the forward pass. Here's a thing. Yesterday was a happy Monday. And here's a Happy Monday right here. Gaz Whelan, the founder member of the Happy Mondays, the drummer of the Happy Mondays, wearing a wee bit of the old Acsom merchandise, ladies and gents. And we didn't ask him to do that, and we didn't send him it as a freebie. He purchased that and was wearing it yesterday. There you go. We are going to have...
I've got one like that somewhere.
Yeah, it's in production. It's still in production, that one. There's new merch on the horizon, in actual fact. And so check out the shop underneath this video. The links are all down there, in amongst Liam's blog as well, which is also listed. If I go to the midfield then, gents, Callum McGregor's been taken off a couple of times in the last few weeks, but there's a suggestion that it might be a calf complaint that he's got. So it makes sense, Ian, to rest him. I mean, we were only 1-0 up against Hibs when it came off. Some have said that we look as though we're a wee bit more fluid when he's not there. What do you think about that? Because I would play Calmac every day of the week at the weekend there alongside Engels and Atati. How have you felt, though, when McGregor's came off and we've had maybe a wee glimpse into a world without Callum McGregor and McCowan's came in and we seem to have flowed a wee bit better? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but I mean, that can happen. But I think Calmac is the fulcrum of that team for me still. You know, it's his personality alone, you know, and he drives the team on. And he'll have a dig from outside the box. He scored quite a few goals, and he's given goals and sort of shots. His precision sort of engineering that he adds. But it is nice to see. I mean, that's what we aspire to, isn't it? At Celtic, is have a strong bench. And so, you know, if the likes of Calmac has to go off, or you know, there's a dip in form or whatever, which is very rare, or it has been over seasons, then we have that fluidity and we can bring others in. And obviously as well that they're chomping at the bit to get in when they get their chance. So Luke McCowan's been knocking on the door since he's been at the club, really. I can see him as being a kind of a natural successor. I think he's the right age, depending on how long Calmac goes on for. But certainly if he plays less games, so we can sort of elongate his career a bit, Calmac, I mean, then I think McCowan is a perfect fit. And you know, one of my favourite players at Celtic is Bernardo. I know he's been injured, but I like Bernardo, and I hope he gets more of a say so as well, and develops and stays with us for a long time.
You know, it's a great point. He's one of the kind of seldom seen and seldom discussed players, Bernardo. But I'm in the same camp as you on that, Ian. I'm a massive fan of Paulo Bernardo. I think what he did last season has not been forgotten about, but we've not really discussed it because he's not been in the team. Even when fit, he's not been a starter this season. But it's a very, very strong area of the park, Liam. Now, what I mean by Callum, I'm not saying drop Callum McGregor or anything. I don't think he's finished. But, for example, Rio Atati comes alive. And I don't know if it's because he thinks, oh, the captain's off, I need to step up here. But it's been a feature of his play over the last couple of games when Callum's come off.
Yeah, I think that Hatati's the sort of player that needs room to experiment. And I think that when McGregor goes off, there's a fluidity to the midfield. It becomes less rigid.
Yeah.
And I think that allows that wee bit of freedom that Hatati needs to be more creative. But I still think you stick with that, with the same three midfield to start on Sunday. But I can definitely see McCowan making a big impact for the bench. You know, it's amazing to think we would have said this a few weeks ago, but you know, Yang, Ida, and McCowan are three big players who are probably not going to start the game, but I think we'll all have something to say on Sunday.
Yeah, it's a great shout because you do look at that bench, and of course we've discussed Taylor. He'll potentially be on that bench as well. Bernardo when he comes back, and then we start looking at a wee bit of depth. Not enough Scalesy as well when he comes back from his facial injury. A bit of depth there, and you're looking at that bench thinking, yeah, you're pretty confident, Liam. You know, if it gets to 60, 65, maybe not going the way you want, or even you want to shore it up a bit. That's when Bernardo comes into a game, not on Sunday, of course. And you know, I'm a bit concerned actually about the fact that Scalesy was out. I hope he comes back and he's on the bench as well. But Taylor, Yang, McCowan, Ida, every one of those, and Ralston, you know, if they have to come in and do a job, you're fairly confident that they will. Let's go back to the comment section, if we will. Always an entertaining thing to look at. I'm going to bring up the picture again just to remind you. This is Gaz Whelan, founder member of Happy Mondays, now doing his own thing, and he's going on tour, and we'll be sharing some of the details of that tour because he is going to join us very soon on This Is Acsom. We're going to go down to Manchester and speak to Gaz. And that's him sporting the Acsom clobber. Here's some of the comments that came in after I brought that up. Stevie Boy, right in there. He looked like the painter that done Liam's top. There you go. to which Craig Young says Jackson bollocks. Oh, I love this. Absolutely brilliant. I love it. Johnny Ryan, is Schlupp prepared to play second fiddle to KT? Well, let's be honest. In terms of a left back, he would be second choice to KT, but he's so adaptable, Lawrence. I know we've not seen it yet, but we know he can play in various other positions. So in terms of game time, you would expect, even if he's coming off the bench for 35 minutes, not necessarily always at left back for next season if we were to bring him in.
Yeah, look, listen, KT can play left centre back as well. So both of them can get moved about. I think we've all got worries about KT's injury record. So it'd be brilliant to see Schlupp coming in. It's just if you can do a deal, you need to give him a chunky signing on fee because it's a free transfer and make his wages up that way. I think he's looked great. He's looked an upgrade in Taylor in every game he's played. Greg's been a great servant for Celtic, but I think you touched on it. He might have played his last game if Schlupp keeps performing. So yeah, bring him in. But for midfield for me, they're not dropping Callum, but I think Callum's there's been a few seasons you get this kind of stage and he's needed a rest. I think he's got kind of an ongoing problem, just the amount of football he plays.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So, and it's Engels and Hatate, isn't it? I think the team's more or less picking itself now. And up top, it's Dyson, who, will no doubt get more than 30 goals this season. And Jota and Kuhn. I don't think, there's any other option for your starting 11. That's your strongest starting 11.
I agree. And all he would need to do, Maida, is get a hat-trick at the weekend to take him up to 30. Don't forget. The Scotland squad...
Dembele and
Harry Hood.
Yes.
Absolutely. The Scotland squad has been announced. And I find it quite interesting that, the longer we go on, the less Celts we seem to see. There's loads of Celtic connections in this squad, of course. But correct me if I'm wrong, guys, the only one I can see Tony Ralston. Kieran Tierney, not officially a Celtic player yet, of course. You've got guys like Ryan Christie, formerly of Celtic, Craig Gordon, Jack Hendry as well. There's Ryan Christie, I've said him. Yeah, so it's an interesting one where you see a player like Kieran Slicker making an appearance in a Scotland squad. But yeah, there you go. There's the Scotland squad. No Luke McCowan, points out Kevin Graham. I think his time will come, though, guys. Luke McCowan will be in a squad. He just needs a wee bit more game time. I said this when he came to Celtic, Ian. It's something Tosh McKinley used to talk about as well. He never played any better for Celtic than he did for Hearts or Dundee. But because he played for Celtic, he ended up in the Scotland squad. Same things is going to happen with Luke McCowan, I would expect.
I think so. It's the old adage about a fashionable club and an unfashionable club, isn't it? And that's happened forever. But I think he will. I think I can see that kind of Ryan Christie ascendancy happening with Luke McCowan. I think he's got similar kind of minerals and attributes. So I think he's got a bright future. It's only good news for Scotland. I think as long as once we start phasing out the likes of Grant Hanley, he's one of these players I just cannot. I can't abide. He's just the players like that need to sort of be phased out, and hopefully that evolution within the Scotland squad we start to sort of replace players of that ilk with maybe younger players who have got a bit about them and build for the future rather than going for players like him. Sorry, Grant, nothing personal.
No, but I think the point you make is a good one because there should be people of the kind of ilk, the Stephen Welsh age group, who should be breaking in to the Scotland squad, and it's not happening for a number of different reasons. Welsh obviously didn't get the game time at Celtic. He's away to maybe get that somewhere else at Mechlin. Robert Hyland makes a good point. Lennon Miller has been called up for the Scotland squad. That will push his price up. I fear we have left it far too late to consider signing him. I think he's still on our radar, to be fair. I'm going to get some predictions from you guys. Obviously, there's been a few tempering your aspirations in the comments, but we'll get some predictions from you before the end of the show. Deku, yeah, we do Acsom merch, we do zippers, hats, books, t-shirts, mugs, sticker packs, everything you can imagine that you could possibly want or not. Things you want but you don't really need, Deku, and the link is underneath this video. Liam, give me a prediction for Celtic versus Rangers, a Glasgow derby this Sunday.
Right, let me think. I'll go with 3-0 to Celtic. 3-0.
3-0. Okay. No, that's fine. I would be delighted with a 3-0 scoreline. Lawrence, you suggested 3-0 by half time, 3 or 4-0 by half time. You're going to stick to that prediction?
Yeah, so I think 5-1 full time, and obviously Rangers getting a penalty. The brethren will step in for them, I think.
I should have said 3-1. Well, good point, Lawrence. Aye, 3-1. I didn't account for the penalty. Aye, sorry.
3-1, 5-1. Ian, what do you make of the game this weekend? How do you see it going?
I think it'll be closer. I think it'll be 2-1, and I can see maybe some VAR controversy or something happening that affects, I mean, it all depends if Maeda has his shooting boots on. If he gets his shooting boots on, because I know he missed a couple of chances, pretty gilt-edged chances against Hibs, which happens, and all the best strikers just keep picking themselves up and keep going. So I think if Maeda's on his game, it could be much more than 2-1, but I've just got a sneaky feeling it's going to be a bit tighter.
I'm going to go 1-0 Jota. There you go. And the iconic celebration. All right. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. We'll be way up at 1,500 live. If you enjoy what you see and you want more of that, then subscribe to the channel for free on YouTube and give us a big thumbs up on the video. All that's left for me to say is, once again, thank you for joining us, Lawrence Conley, Ian Conroy and Liam Carrigan on A Celtic State of Mind.